what you saw was just, again, one side of the story. That was a traditional Turkish dance from Iran, which were all men. Again, that's one side of the story. Iran is not a male-dominant country. After my speech and before the Q&A, I will show you another video which has both genders in it, male and female, which shows that contrary to what you just saw, happiness in Iran is not male-dominant. Happiness is not a monopoly possessed by men. Okay, what I was saying was that women in Iran are shown like this. And yes, she is a woman from Iran. She is actually from Iran. And that's actually how some women dress, right? But she's also from Iran. And as you can see, it's a totally different attire. She is dressed totally differently. And they're both in the same country. They can both walk on the streets freely without being bothered, whether by the government or by other people. Yes, some men are like this. Yes, some men are with big beards and very tight shirts. I myself had a very big beard up to a few days ago. You can ask my friends. But these are also Iranian men. With green eyes, with fancy clothes, fancy hairstyles. They're also Iranians. So as you can see, Iranian women and Iranian men have two different forms. One of which you keep seeing in your news, another is what I'm showing you now. Why does it happen? How does it happen? Let's get a little bit technical now. How is it that what you see is half of the truth? And how is it that you only see that half? Well, in philosophy, there is something called the mistake of Gestalt, which means what you see is what you see, plus what it is, plus what your society believes what it is, plus what others believe what it is, plus what it tells you what it is. For instance, I look different for you than I look for you, than I look for you. Well, you are asleep, so you don't see me anyways. For each person, I have a different presentation. Yes, I am saying the same things, but you are listening and hearing different things. Why? Because for some of you, I am this big guy who is quite scary and you are afraid of him. For some of you, I am this cute friend that you know for 10 months. For some of you, I'm this stranger that you just have to listen to because you enrolled in this classroom, and if you don't sit down right now, you will not get your score. So each one of you has a background that's shaped by your society, by your upbringing, by your education, by your religion, by so many things. So whatever the reality is will be quite different than what you actually perceive. In other words, the reality takes a long way until it gets to you. It gets distorted by the media, by the social conventions, like the norms and traditions that actually exist around you, by the political interventions and political motivations, what your government wants you to think, what your government wants you to believe, what your government wants you to know, and also by institutional arrangements. What are the legal terms defining the country, the phenomenon you are looking at? They all gather together and they all surround the reality. So the reality you see is not actually a reality. It's your conception of that reality. And that's what's happening about Iran. The Iran you know, the Iran you knew and you used to know was not actually the Iran that really exists. It was the Iran that you were meant to know by different factors. Now it's different. Your image of Iran has changed, right? Now you see Iran in a new perspective. Why? Because a new factor was added to your perception. From now on, one thing I hope you get out of this speech, well, it's not finished yet, don't raise your hopes up, but one thing I hope you achieve from today's speech is to know whatever you hear could have another side. Okay? For instance, you are going and you see, well, it's an old Chinese mythology story. But one guy goes by and he sees two creatures fighting. He doesn't know what they are. He doesn't know who they are. He just sees two creatures fighting, and one creature is winning against the other creature. Instantly, he goes to support the losing creature. Little he knew, the winning creature was actually goodness, and the losing creature was badness. So he actually helped evil to win without knowing the whole truth. And that's what's happening with you guys, with everybody. When you just accept one side of the story, when you do not follow through, when you do not actually think and ask and search and look from different directions. Now that we talked about different sides of Iran, let's see what Iran really is. What does it really mean? To know and to understand Iran, first we must understand one hypothesis, one theory, which is called the world is flat. Well, in geography and in physics, you learn that the universe and the world, the earth is round, right? They tell you that it's a round universe. And when you go from one direction, you will come back from the other direction. But in social science, that does not happen. In social science, the world is actually flat. It is not a round. It's not a circle. It's a flat map. The first time this concept was presented was in a book written by Thomas L. Friedman. He actually showed, based on 10 different events that happened in the 21st century, now countries are the same. Now all the societies have the same situation. So no society is different from any other society. To define that concept, he used the word flat and said the universe, the world is flat. In politics, Samuel P. Huntington took that concept and defined his ideology, his view of the world in the same thing. And he also said, yes, the world is flat, and there is a west, there is an east, and there is a middle. That's how the concept and the phrase of Middle East was invented, was born. The region that is actually at the center of the universe. In politics, of course, not in physics and geography. So, when we look at the world from a political point of view, from a social point of view, we see a West which has the United States, the Canada, the Latin America inside. We see an East, we see a Far East, which has China, Taiwan, Japan, Korea inside. And then we see a center, that actually consists of the Middle East. And at the center of that Middle East, we have a country called Iran. So now you all can show Iran on the map, right? That's why Iran is important. But what you should know about Iran is that, first of all, it is the center of the world. That's why it is important, because of its position. It's a very big country at the center of the whole world, and that makes it quite important and fascinating. It's also quite populated. It has 84 million people inside, 4 times the population of your country, Taiwan. It produces 444 billion US dollars a year as GDP, as its gross domestic product, which divided by its population becomes 5,000 US dollars for each person a year, which is quite low for such a big country. So even though it's a very big country and it has so much importance in the world, it does not earn as much as it should. But things that you must always remember, things that the news does not show you, the media does not show you, is that first, Iran is a democracy. It's not a dictatorship. There's a difference between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And that difference is that in Iran, people actually choose their president. Yes, we have a supreme leader. Why? Because Iran is the Islamic Republic of Iran. It has an ideological side. So we need an ideological leader, which is the supreme leader, and will be chosen by the clergymen based on religious aspects. But we also have a manager, somebody who manages the entirety of the country, which is the president of the country. And that president is chosen every 4 years by the people. Its population are not illiterates. They are not what you may call backward thinking people. They are actually highly educated. We have one of the highest rates of university education in the world. Almost every Iranian has at least a bachelor's degree. Most of them even have a master's degree. And as you can learn by searching Iran from different media after this session, you can see that Iran is actually a very beautiful country with so many beautiful sites that is definitely worth visiting. But one thing that makes it important and interesting is the fact that Iran is in the center of a very volatile region. There are so many different countries in that region that are actually in the midst of civil war. There are so many. There's so much conflict in the region, and that's one of the reasons Iran becomes important. That's one of the reasons Iran becomes critical, because it is in the center of the most volatile region in the world. We have it had a big revolution in 1979. The people gathered together and they decided that the regime, the current regime, which was a kingdom and a dictatorship, an aristocratic dictatorship, is not doing its job, and it has to be changed. And it changed into a democracy based on the religious Islam. Then, afterwards, in 2010, Tunisia experienced the same thing. They also rioted against the current regime, and they overthrew the regime and changed the entirety of their political system. Then other states followed them: Yemen, Syria, Egypt. And because of the fact that all these countries did not think this through, they wanted a democracy, they wanted a change, they wanted improvement. but they did not actually study the aspects they have to follow to reach that goal. Civil wars began. So many countries in the Middle East right now are taking damage because of civil war. Yemen, Syria, Palestine, they are experiencing war for so many years, and it's not with another country. It's inside their own country. Yemeni is fighting Yemeni. Syrian is fighting Syrian. Palestinian is fighting, Palestine is fighting Israel, but they are of the same origin anyways. Back in the days, they were the same people. Now they have separated. In other words, brother is killing brother. Sister is killing sister. Father is killing son. Daughter is killing mother. That's the problem. That's why this society is quite important. Because it is one of the only peaceful countries in the region. And one of the most diverse countries in the region. But it's facing a lot of challenges. In the region, so many want separatism. Kurdish people want their own country. Shia and Sunni are fighting. There are so many different ethnic groups that they want to be autonomous. There is so many people who want to change their residence, but they can't because of what already exists. But what's more important, what's more damaging, what's more devastating is the intervention from outside of the Middle East. Something that actually makes Iran angry. Something that results in Iran being the big enemy, the big supporter of evil. Why? Because Iran is the only country in the region that stands in front of foreign intervention. The United States, Russia, and China want to have a hand inside this region. Why? Because there is oil in the region, because there is prosperity in the region, because this region is useful. But Iran does not want that. Why? Because it is our home. What would you think if China came inside your country and claimed it for its own? You would get furious, right? You do get furious sometimes, right? You're not always so calm. You do get angry from time to time, right? The same is happening in Iran, in the Middle East. Right now, from different sides, they are coming to Iran. They are coming to the Middle East. And Iran is trying to stop them. Why? Because Iran believes that the problems of the Middle East should be solved by the people of the Middle East. Something not all the countries believe in. Saudi Arabia does not believe in that. United Arab Emirates does not believe in that. Israel does not believe in that. And because of this, there is fight and war and bloodshed. Something that keeps going on. As you can see, inside the region, there is so many violent interactions between different countries. Why? Because there was civil war in Syria. There is civil war in Syria. There is civil war in Yemen. And, the big powers like Iran and Saudi Arabia are intervening, trying to gain a peaceful resolution, which the other side does not want. Why? Because there is a foreign